Oh no, Kevin goes last.
I'll go after Mike. Okay.
Go after Mike. Kevin goes last. As it should be. Yeah, we are live, people. Yeah, we're getting close now. It's I actually did something that I haven't done in a long time today. I skated.
Wow.
I my back has been pretty bad, so I just put on my daughter's been going. I've been taking her to Pucks and Sticks, they call it, 10 a.m. this week for like an hour or so, and because she's trying to transition, she wants to be a hockey goalie from a soccer goalie. So I've been taking her every day, and she's just been skating around, just without her goalie stuff on, just been skating around, and it's mostly just I don't know, unemployed guys and a few other people there. And they're nice people. It's really nice. It's a nice group of guys. I used to play open hockey with a lot of these guys. Some salesmen, some people who have time off. So, but I actually, I was watching her every day, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna get on the ice. I'm just gonna be like just move around a little bit so I can pass it back and forth with her, and let her, give and goes, and so she goes in that and stuff like that.
And how did the back react?
It felt amazing. It felt really good, and my back still feels good. And I think that for whatever reason, there's certain things with with my back injury that hurt, and then certain things that don't. And the motion of skating doesn't hurt it, which is awesome, because I can actually do something physical, which I think I should do.
Well, you can tell that the season is getting closer. At least hockey is getting closer. I mean, obviously by looking at the calendar.
Yeah.
But also there was an announcement today that the All-American Prospects game is coming back to Buffalo. I think it's September 24th. And last year it was in Buffalo, and it was my first chance to see Eichel and Noah Hannafin, and I think Jeremy Bracco was there, so it'll be a good chance to see Keith Tkachuk's son and Matthew Tkachuk and a few other of the potential first-round picks for the 2016 draft.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's really awesome. No, I'm psyched about that we get that back again. Yep, that's really it's gonna be quite a fun year. And it was fun skating and talking to people, and a couple people recognized me from the show. And one person actually asked me what happened to the show yesterday. And for those of you watching, we don't know what happened to the show yesterday. We got Googled, whatever that means. So we're trying to figure it out with them. If you watched it live, it was a lot of fun. And only a few people did that. But if so, everyone usually downloads it, didn't get a chance to watch it later. So
yeah, we can reenact it for you right now. If you
no, we can't do it. But there's certain things we shouldn't do. There was maybe some of the things were good that it wasn't on tape. But anyway, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it there for now. Let's move on to some hockey. It's the 26th, correct?
Wednesday the 26th. Yes.
My sister's birthday is tomorrow. For those of you keeping track at home, I have yet to buy her anything. Her daughter watches the podcast all the time. You guys met her one time when she was on the air. So anyway, Bree, tell Wendy I've got her something. Anyway,
gift cards are nice.
Cover for me. All right, here we go. Hello, Hockey World. It's Wednesday, August 26th, 2015.
I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Dan Petru.
I'm Kevin Allen of USA Today Sports.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching the HockeyBuzzCast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes to you every Monday through Friday at 1 o'clock to fill you in on all the goings and comings of Hockey World, and to sort of keep you up to date, and so you don't have to pay attention. And you know what? As I said, I skated today. That was a great feeling. Some really nice guys, and just that feeling of going into a rink was amazing. Was so cool. I mean, you got this, Kevin, I guess, at Lake Placid, but that feeling. Even though we all spend a lot of time at rinks, the first time you go to a rink after not being in a rink for a while, there's nothing like it. There's that incredible thing. You know what I mean, Kev?
Oh, for sure. And you said it. I was in Lake Placid, and it was August, and it was the site of Mike Ruzzione's goal. And I have told some folks that I'm surprised there's not a marking on the ice where he was when he scored that goal.
Yeah.
And the last time I was there, I thought that as well. There's no commemoration. There should be actually just a little, dot to there so that people know where he was when he scored the goal. But anyway,
that'd be awesome.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like a natural marketing because so many people. It's a resort area, so you go there for reasons of enjoying yourself in the summer, and people take tours of the arena.
Oh yeah.
So it would be a kind of a cool thing. But anyway, just being in the arena and it was a little warm there, but there was a couple of hours there when it was cooler, and it just sort of felt like hockey was here. So
It's great. It's great. I know. I love it. It's getting rid of the humidity. It's like taking out that humidity that we all feel that seems to permeate from. I believe Washington D.C. is the home of humidity, and it goes. If you go to Washington, it's the most humid place in the world. And then when you go out from there, it gets more less humid. But I'm only 3 hours away from Washington, so it's very humid here. And
I thought it was New York City. New York City, Manhattan always seems like the most humid place.
It's always just disgusting. It just feels like the hot air gets trapped. Like
it does in between the buildings, and it just hangs there. And
it just like feels like a wet armpit.
Well, Buffalo doesn't have many tall buildings, but I think we can give New York a run for their money in terms of humidity. It's sickeningly sticky here for like 6 or 7 weeks in like mid-July to August.
Man, I'm just so happy that this morning I walked outside and it just seemed like it was gone. And so a couple things we're going to talk about today. We're going to get into a really interesting topic that's a lot more hard to determine than the topic we determined before, which was who's the toughest team in the NHL. Mm-hmm. We're going to go with who's the fastest team in the NHL, and this is a lot of there's a lot of ways to go with this. So we'll get into it real quick. But first off, I had a trivia question for you guys that someone sent me that I think is really a good trivia question, and here it is. Of the top 6 all-time playoff point leaders, only one of them didn't play on the Edmonton Oilers of the 1980s. You realize this? So only one of the top 6 all-time playoff scoring leaders did not play on the Oilers of the 1980s.
John Beliveau.
Nope, not John Beliveau.
Gordie Howe.
Nope.
Brian Trottier.
Nope. I'll give you a hint. He is more recent than that.
Mike Modano.
More recent than that.
Jaromir Jagr?
Jaromir Jagr. Yep, Jagr's the only person in the top 6 all-time point scorers that did not play on the Oilers of the 1980s. In the 1980s, isn't that crazy? I mean, that's how that team just dominates the scoring from that era. That team just put playoff stuff away like there was nobody's business.
It's funny. I was thinking about an Islander, but now I think about it, there can't be an Islander from those dynasty years because they won every series in 4 or 5 games. They didn't get stretched very often.
Right, that's true. That's a very good point. So I like that one a lot. Another thing that was sent to me real quick.
Question. That was a good question.
Yeah, another thing that was sent to me, and I like when these things are sent to me, and this was also from the Reddit site, is that officially now the AC/DC, the band AC/DC, they have a website, and they are selling this jersey.
Oh, I saw that.
It's a Quebec Nordiques jersey, a Quebec jersey with AC/DC on it, and apparently, some people are taking it. This is I guess somebody in the one of the members of the band is a big Nordiques fan, and this is his way of pushing for the return of the Nordiques. But it feels to me like I talked to somebody yesterday, and it feels like a foregone conclusion now. Kevin, does it feel like that it's going to be Vegas and Quebec, and that we're just waiting on when that's going to be told to us, sort of?
Yeah, it does feel that way to me too. And I think they've just decided that, and the money is, I guess, too staggering too when you think about it. I mean, you're talking about $1 million between the 2 franchises, and I talked about earlier how I was told that don't get hung up on the geography, that they'll sort that out, just as long as the teams are good. And I was told all along that Quebec is eventually going to get a team, it's just a matter of when. So apparently, when it's going to be now. That's what it feels like.
It does feel like that. It feels like we've really reached that, and to the point where it's almost, in talking to people, it's just assumed that that's. Yeah. And when do you think the first year is going to be? Do you think it's going to be 17-18?
Yeah, that's what I think. For sure.
That's what it seems like, and I mean, it feels like that's right. Although I'd love to see it in 16-17, which I guess is just too quick.
Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. But and that'll give them time and. We've talked about this before, but I really do hope that they give those teams a fighting chance and this is always hard because the people who will decide this, they get hurt. But, they really do. The expansion draft needs to provide these expansion teams with players that make them competitive sooner rather than later.
I got you, yeah.
Well, I think too, with this day and age, we haven't had an expansion draft during a salary cap age. you might see these teams, since they have to fill out a roster, they have to spend money. Right. You might see them take some decent contracts, because you know that the other 30 general managers can't wait for an expansion draft to expose some of their bad contracts. So you might see guys who can play a little.
We've talked about that before, but I actually ran that by GMs, and their reaction was, "Well, why would an expansion team take a bad contract?" You know,
you do have to make it to the ceiling.
Well,
somebody's got to make $5 million on your team.
So, well, I think there will be some people, because they'll be in the free agent market, and they'll have better opportunity. Now the question is if they can recruit. That'll be the big. So.
Yeah, I mean, teams will protect their young veterans who are either on their entry level or on bridge deals. You know, I can use Toronto for an example.
They're usually exempt.
Right. There's a certain amount of games, but a team like Toronto, for example, I wouldn't doubt that they would expose Dion Phaneuf or a Joffrey Lupul, because maybe they think that the other team won't pick them up, but also maybe they think there's a chance that the expansion teams would pick them up. It would benefit them either way. It would allow them to protect one more player who they might think has a better chance of being claimed, or getting rid of that large salary if they want to move them out.
I mean,
I think there's a big difference between a Dion Phaneuf and, say, a bad contract like David Clarkson. Like, those are the guys that I'm saying they're not going to take. For sure, I think they would be interested in a Dion Phaneuf who, can still play, and you have to sell your fans, win them over with the credibility of your roster. Well, Dion Phaneuf gives you credibility, where Clarkson, just even though I think he's a contributor, just not at that salary. And then I think it's hard to sell credibility if you're taking a Clarkson contract. Yeah. I guess my point is they'll take a Phaneuf, but they won't take a really bad contract.
I mean, even like some of these teams, let's just say for example, a third line forward on the Blackhawks is taken, and he makes $2.5 million. That $2.5 million would be very valuable to the Blackhawks.
Oh yeah, very valuable.
A player like Phaneuf, or other players in other organizations like him, they are assets that an expansion team could bring in as an established player who could play, and then potentially trade away for young assets a year or two down the road. So it's a sort of a win-win for them.
Very much a win-win.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that in other expansion drafts where sometimes deals are made prior to the expansion draft, where a team will say, "Hey, take this guy," and especially goalies, because there'll be some quality goalies will be exposed. Like, if the expansion draft happened now, well, I guess Gibson would be exempt. But
using an example like Anaheim, maybe a Khudobin or maybe an Anderson would have to be exposed, because usually it'll be one goaltender that's protected, right?
Correct. Yeah. But for sure. But and if you were in the market looking for a goalie, maybe you cut a deal with Quebec or Las Vegas and say, hey, get Khudobin for me, and I'll give you, a young prospect that I would not expose to you in the expansion draft.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. I mean, it's going to be so much fun, and we're going to have. I mean, the next couple off seasons are going to be interesting, because this off season we have. I mean, not this off season, but the coming off season, we're going to be obviously talking about the World Cup of Hockey a lot, and then the season after that, it's going to be the expansion draft, right? So we're going to have a couple off seasons there in a row that'll be fascinating. Are you guys fans of the ESPN show 30 for 30?
I am.
Yes.
Yeah, I did not realize this, but yeah, no, it's a really great show. And I did not realize that a while ago. I guess it was at the end of July. They did an episode called "Of Miracles in Men." Did you guys see it?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, this is really something. It's really worth watching. And it's available on YouTube. If you just search for "Of Miracles in Men," you can see it on YouTube. It's season 2, episode 27 of 30 for 30, and it is the Miracle on Ice from the Russian perspective.
Yeah, it's sort of a companion piece to the movie Red Army that was released.
Right.
I think it was late last year, which was I have not seen it yet, but I've heard it's excellent. But the ESPN 30 for 30 was very good, and I believe Fedosov was the central figure in that.
Yeah, he was. It was just really well done. And I'm such a big fan of the whole Miracle on Ice, and we talked a little bit yesterday about Russian hockey. But this gives whole nother perspective on Russian hockey that I think is worth watching. So, just search of Miracles and Men on YouTube, and you'll find it for sure. Let's get into our main topic for today. As I fall down this well, let's see.
Will we log off?
No. Yeah, yes. Everybody log off for a second, and then come back on, and I'll talk to you. There's another option we have. So I'm working on. Let's see. So they're gone. Kevin, yours seem okay. You can just stay there, Kev. Your team might go all right. It was apparently not. All right, we'll see. Anyway, but we seem to be good now. We're going to bring us back. Getting into the main topic for today, which this week I've been sort of focusing, since it is the slowest week in the hockey season, in my opinion, on questions. So the first question we had was, who's the toughest team in hockey? And today we're going to get into who's the fastest team in hockey. And speed kills, they always say. And I put this out yesterday as a blog. I got a lot of responses. Almost every team mentioned at some point or another, with the exception of maybe the Bruins. I actually weren't. Bruins are pretty much considered the slowest team in hockey right now when you talk to people, when you read what the fans say. I don't know if that's fair, but that's what fans definitely have labeled the Bruins as, the slowest team in hockey. And my three teams that I came up with were not mentioned as much as a couple of the teams mentioned by the fans on Twitter and in my blog. But I wanted to get your opinions before I reveal to you what the fans said, what my teams are, and stuff like that. So let's start with Dan. What do you think, Dan? The fastest team in hockey is?
Well, I think there are quite a few teams that have good team speed.
Yeah.
I think the Flames come to mind as a team that can really skate. I think Dallas collectively can skate, and the Rangers collectively can skate, although they might have taken a step back a little bit this year, losing Hagelin. But I think, in my opinion, with the team that I've seen play the most, I just am impressed by how fast they get up and down the ice, is the Tampa Bay Lightning. I just think collectively that group of forwards. I know Brian Boyle's on the team, which probably, if you're grading on a curve, that'll slow you down a little bit. But besides him, their top 9 forwards can flat out skate, and they have some really good puck moving defensemen that can fly too.
Yeah, that's a good one. I mean, it's hard. And Tampa was mentioned a lot, obviously, by people, by our readers, as one of the fastest. And watching them last year, the one thing that you heard the Blackhawks talk about quite a bit during the Stanley Cup Finals is how fast the Tampa Lightning were. That they really appreciated it because they didn't see them play very often, and they realized that they were playing against one of the fastest teams they'd seen. What's your opinion, Kevin, on this topic?
Yeah, to me it's the Lightning as well, and I think you have to take into account, the success they had last season. And I think the Rangers are still fast, even though they gave up Hagelin. Emerson Atem is not slow either, but they still have Kreider as well, who's just incredibly fast, and a sleeper, and they're a different kind of quick. They just play fast. Like, I think they're still the best transition team, and the ability to go from defense to offense is the Chicago Blackhawks. I just think they're a really quick team. They play quick. They don't have the same level of raw speed that Tampa has, but they really play quick.
No, they sure do. And that was the one thing that we noticed last year, especially during the final against the Kings, how fast they were. And you're right, and they do lose some speed. Hagelin's is such a speed burner player, but I love the pickup of Eaton. I think Emerson was misplayed a lot in Anaheim, and I hope he gets the minutes he deserves. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Well, at 3 for 3, I thought Tampa was far and away the quickest team last year. Another sort of dark horse. The Ottawa Senators are very quick. Players like Bobby Ryan is no slouch. Clark MacArthur has always been a pretty good skater. Mark Stone and Zibanejad and Mike Hoffman. They have a number of forwards who are really quick. And Erik Karlsson is probably the fastest defenseman in the league, or one of them. So I think that one of the things that separated them late in the year was their team speed overcame a lot of other tired teams down the stretch. And in the West, as Dan said, Calgary with Gaudreau, Dallas with Sagan. I mean, a lot of overall team speed. But I think Tampa, one of their main advantages is that not only are their premier players like Stamkos and Tyler Johnson fast, but Palat and Kucherov and Nemestikov and a lot of these smaller players who are depth players contribute a lot of speed, and I think they're one of the best teams in the league.
I like that. The Senators definitely were fast down the stretch last year, but they caught lightning in a bottle. They are the hardest team in my. I mean, you just did your predictions, Kevin. The Senators are the hardest team in my mind to predict for next year. I don't have a feeling for them.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. They really are, and I think the price that they have to pay is that they're in a tough division to try to make the playoffs because Tampa nor Detroit nor Montreal really lost anything, and Ottawa just didn't do anything. That to me, that's a drawback for them. This was an opportunity to build on what they had, and for whatever reason, budgetary reasons, or they believe their group is going to get better, and they do have some players, you mentioned them, like Hoffman, who are they're going to get better. But I think that's why I'm not bullish on them, just because I didn't think they did anything at a time when a lot of teams got better.
Yeah. No, they did look so good. Obviously, down the stretch, their record was crazy good for the last 30 games of the season. I mean, just by far the best in the NHL. They took over, right? But then in the playoffs, you saw their inexperience come through too. I had a really interesting article on. By the way, while we're on the Sens, just for a second, on Erik Karlsson, I read. Did you guys see this? That Karlsson, they asked about his off-season, regimen. Like everyone has their own off-season routine. And he says, "I do all my conditioning on the ice. I don't do any conditioning during the summer," Karlsson told reporters. "My issue has always been keeping weight on and trying to get bigger and stronger. And I find if I do that throughout the summer as well, I can't put any weight on and keep it throughout the year." So basically, he spends the summer trying to get fat.
So he's taking up the old Phil Kessel approach.
Right. If he conditioned, he would keep his weight down. So he's trying to do it. He says, from 17 to 23, I went really hard for 5 years straight. That can kind of feel as you play more games, you've been around for a time, that you can't do the same thing anymore. And as of right now, I'm in the stage where I'm trying to maintain what I have. So he's, after winning the Norris Trophy as the league's top defenseman, he just says, I figured out that I shouldn't do this. I shouldn't work out in the off season. I've never heard a player say this. That ever admit to it, at least. I mean, there are some players I believe don't work out in the off season.
Well, the reason I brought Kessel up back is because at the beginning of training camp last year, he said that he skated like 3 or 4 times and really didn't get onto the ice at all during the summer. And that was a point of controversy when the Leafs started to fall off and everybody pointed to Kessel being out of shape, which I don't think was the case. It was just he gave the media an open opportunity to criticize him because he admitted that. He probably should have kept it to himself.
Yeah. And you got guys like John Tavares, who's pulling like an 18-rit truck with his nose hairs during the off season.
Right. I mean,
it's funny how each player is different.
And when you talk to aging players too, their workout regimen's intense in the summer. I mean, they really keep it going because they're getting older. He's getting older, and he's saying the best thing for me now is just to take the summer off. What are your thoughts, Kev, on this?
Well, what I find one of the big differences from when I first started covering the league till now is that when I first started, you came to training camp to get in shape, and now, like in most NHL cities, there's a group of players and a large group that are skating every day.
Yeah.
There's guys move in and out depending on what they got going, but there will always be 3 or 4 guys when you talk to them say, yeah, they're down here every day. So they're skating, and to me that's still the best thing. Like obviously you're trying to get stronger. Some guys need to get in the workroom, but staying on the ice and staying sharp. That's always key, and I think for the most part there aren't many guys left, and I bet that Karlsson doesn't mean it exactly the way that it came out.
Yeah.
Like I'm sure he's mindful. He's not adding fat. He's paying attention to what he eats, and And
Oh yeah, no, I'm sure he is, but it's interesting. He says that he has to, or else he would keep. If he doesn't, he wants to put on pounds. Essentially, I guess he's a guy who just wants to put on some weight because the more exercise. And he also, this is a guy who plays, a ton of hockey when he plays for this team. He plays when he's playing for the Ottawa Senators. He's getting serious workouts that would maybe enable him to take some time off in the summer. I mean, this guy is definitely pushing it. I mean, but he's also at a perfect age right now to do this too, and he's not at the age yet where he has to worry about things really going
right. In a few
down.
years, you won't have to worry about the pound staying on. Believe you, I think we can all attest to that.
Right. It's gonna change.
Well, one of the issues I will never forget this because I really felt that trying to think who replaced Barry Melrose. It might have been Rick Tocchet. Melrose was coach when Stamkos first came in and didn't appreciate what he had in Stamkos, or at least didn't think Stamkos was ready to be where he was.
Right.
And then I believe it was Tocchet, but I could be wrong. It was Tocchet? Okay. Yeah. Tocchet, I thought, came up with the perfect way to deal with the younger players. And what he did basically is he treated Stamkos as if he were an apprentice. And when you think about it, there's a lot of logic to it. Like if you're a young lawyer, when you show up at the firm, they don't throw you in and expect you to litigate on day one and to do everything a lawyer do. You sort of eat your way into it. You start out by writing briefs. And it's the same in the business world. Pretty much in every business, young people sort of ease their way into it. But, in pro sports, we take them in and they do the same thing that everybody else does. Maybe their minutes aren't the same, but, they're matched up against top players. They have the same practice schedule and they have everything else. And what Tocchet did was, if you remember, is he basically would play Stamkos like 4 or 5 games, and then he would sit him out and make him sit in the press box, and then he and an assistant coach would talk about what he saw from up in the press box. And there would be a discussion about, okay, how can you take what you just saw and make yourself a better player? Secondly, on the days when he wasn't playing, he got in the weight room. And I remember talking to Stamkos, and if you remember, he had a good second half.
Yeah.
I remember talking to Stamkos, and what he said the big thing for him is that in the beginning of the season, he never had time to get in the weight room. He was always practicing or playing and everything. Mm-hmm. When he got time to get in and work out a couple of times a week, he got stronger, and his endurance sort of built up. And I think, no matter how skillful these players are, that it would behoove most teams to treat players like that. Like, just respect the fact that, at 18, they're not quite as ready, both mentally and physically, to do everything you do, and sort of treat them like an apprenticeship. And I think you'll actually get more out of them by doing that. I'm not suggesting that the Sabres should do that with Eichel, but maybe it would help.
What would happen if Connor McDavid sat a game in the press box?
Yeah, no, they're obviously a special circumstance player.
No, I agree with your point too. I think it's a great idea.
And Connor McDavid I believe has been working with Gary Roberts since he was 16, and Stamkos started working with Gary Roberts. I think Roberts was his teammate in Tampa Bay and started working out with him in the summers. So that physical fitness has been a main focus of Stamkos ever since his rookie year. So, and I think it's going to probably elongate his career because he is a physical specimen now.
But what I like about this more than the physical aspect of it is just the mental aspect of it with these players.
Sure. I think that's a bigger thing.
They are 18-year-old kids, and some of them, and you do realize it, as a 47 or 46. I always forget how old I am. I'm right around 47. The 47-year-old man, when I'm interviewing these, they are 18-year-old kids. It's like there's no question about it. Like that's the weirdest thing as a hockey reporter, because still to me is when you go up and you meet somebody like Eichel or McDavid, who you've been talking about all the time, and you just kind of assume that they're just hockey players. They're men. You meet them, and they're kids. And that they can do what men can do, and they can play at the level of men, but mentally, they can't possibly be as mature mentally as they are mature on the ice. It's just not possible. I don't think. And something like this does give them a chance to actually mentally mature, and it's not a bad idea for McDavid and Eichel to watch games in the press box, once in a while. It's not likely going to happen, but it's not a bad idea.
And I'd be willing to bet and make a prediction that both of those players will hit a wall at some point. Where, it's just
it's inevitable.
Yeah, it is inevitable that they're gonna, and I think you're right. It's probably going to be the mental wall where.
The pressures, because the pressure is so intense on them, and they're going to come in, and there's going to be all this adrenaline. The pressure's there. They're going to fight off that, adrenaline, and it's going to, and they're going to thrive off of it. And they're going to be fine for a while, just like any player is. You always see a player when he's traded to a new team, just goes like he's shot out of a cannon. David Perron, perfect example, right? Last year, Perron comes to Pittsburgh and looks like what we all kind of expect David Perron to be. And then you hit this wall where and it's all mental. It's all mental. I mean, it's suddenly you can no longer play at that level for whatever reason. You just can't do it, and that's even Perron's been around for a while too.
Yeah.
These guys are going to hit it for sure, and every player does.
Ironically, I think Eichel may face more pressure than McDavid, even though McDavid is the #1 pick. He's in a Canadian market. At least there are other players who are drafted first overall, other young star players that can maybe share the burden a little bit. With Buffalo, I mean, you have established players like Kane and O'Reilly there, but the excitement in Buffalo is all on the addition of Eichel. And
right back. Sorry, my computer's going nuts. 1 second. I'll be back.
Okay.
Something's wrong with my.
Okay, I'll continue.
We're going down with the ship.
I think all the pressure. Wow. I think all the pressure is on Eichel because I know like being in Buffalo, he's the main focal point of the excitement. People are excited about Ryan O'Reilly. People are excited about Evander Kane. Gergensons is a good young player. Ennis has been here for a couple years. Sam Reinhart is a former number 2 overall pick. But, Kevin, I think it's Eichel. I mean, Eichel is the poster boy for this franchise. And they just announced yesterday that they capped the season tickets at 16,000 and to leave individual game tickets for some of the fans. This is a team that was dead last for 2 years in a row, and they had to cap the season tickets. Yeah,
and I mean, I don't think there's any question he's the most talked about young player since Perot. I mean, he's pretty. He's the rock on which they're going to build this church. So, I think it does help him though that I think they did a good job of surrounding him with players now that he can play. I'm just working on a story of how many points do you think McDavid and Eichel are going to have, and I was fascinated that I've been talking to NHL folks about it. And they're all in the same category. The low is 40 for Eichel and 50 for McDavid, and the high is 65 for McDavid and 55 for Eichel. And it's all based on they just think that Edmonton has more weapons, but I'm not so sure on that. I think Buffalo's weapons are pretty good. I don't think they're given enough credit to. I think the top 6 of Buffalo could be pretty good.
Yeah, but I think the difference, and Dan, I want to get your impression on this. I think McDavid will clearly be the #1 center with Edmonton. I don't think there's going to be any doubt he's going to start the season, between, let's say Taylor Hall and Eberle, on the #1 line. I think Dan Bylsma will take a little bit of the heat off of Eichel by putting Ryan O'Reilly in the #1 spot,
right,
and having Eichel play as a #2. Dan?
Well, yeah, when Eichel hits that wall, that all players do, he can lean on like O'Reilly for support because O'Reilly already hit a wall this offseason, the wall of Tim Hortons. Too soon? But with that being said, sorry, I couldn't help myself. With that being said, no, I think Eichel. There are more weapons in Edmonton, and plus the style they play, which over the past few years has led them to getting the likes of Connor McDavid. A not much of a defense, kind of wide open kind of game, might lead them to some more goals. But with Eichel, we can't discount Evander Kane. I think he really is going to bounce back in this new setting, this new environment. I do think you'll see Eichel on the first unit of the power play. But I think Bilesma is going to shield him for a little while and protect him for a little while, just to see, get him comfortable, and then you might see his minutes increase. Then you might see his responsibility increase. And the wild card here is Reinhart. Reinhart is a really talented player, and actually maybe he has a lot of pressure taken off of him by the emergence of Eichel. But he was drafted really high, and there's pressure on him to perform as well.
Well, I know from people who were at the rookie scrimmages, and you can't base everything on a couple scrimmages in July, but I was told that Reinhart was the most impressive of any of the Sabre prospects, along with Justin Bailey, a second-round pick from a couple years ago. And not that Eichel wasn't impressive, but Eichel appeared a little tired, and you had to factor in the fact that he played in the World Championships. And he had more of a burden throughout the year than Reinhart. Reinhart played in the World Juniors for Canada and played very well, but his season was over relatively. I think it was over in April, and right and Eichel played through till May, and then almost into June. So you're talking about somebody, Did we lose Dan? Oh, I'm sorry. Dan.
It just I went down with the ship too.
Yeah, Google's getting back to us, and my phone is ringing off the hook here.
Morton's took me off the air.
But no, we're still on the air. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's when it comes to Reinhart, the pressure is dramatically taken off of him. I mean, I even heard the possibility, if he doesn't perform well in training camp, that once he turns 20, which is in November, that he might go down to Rochester. But he is expected to be good enough to make the team. Welcome back, Ak.
Thanks.
Well, what's interesting about Reinhart is, if you talk to people who watched him closely, there's a big sigh of relief that he actually looked good in rookie camp, because he was really not all that impressive last season when he showed up in Buffalo. He's a young man, and you should expect this, but there is a level of expectation that we now have with 18-year-old high-level picks. They know that they're not going to be seasoned pros, but they expect them to look a certain way. And I was told he really didn't look like even close to being ready. And then, just as you pointed out, I've heard that he has looked very good this summer. And so I think everybody in Buffalo is pretty excited about that, too, because they weren't quite sure what type of player they were going to get. So it'll be interesting to see how that kind of all plays out, because if it does, holy cow, when you factor in Gergensons, and I think he's just a terrific player. Then you have O'Reilly and Eichel and Reinhart. There's a lot of quality centers there, and you can move O'Reilly to the wing, and that just improves your top six, in my opinion. And then they have Tyler Ennis as well, so they've got some.
Matt Molson's still there too, right?
Yeah, and I think Molson will have a good year. So there's some quality players there.
Matt Molson will do what he does best, Dan. He'll go to the net and wait for Eichel to pass him the puck.
He got rich. He got very rich doing that.
I'm not saying. He's making $5 million because he was a great trigger man for John Tavares. You go to the.
Ask P.A. Parento about that too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, no, there's no question about that. And the Sabres, to finish up my thought, I never got to talk about my fastest team and what the other thing said. The Sabres could be one of them potentially. I mean, they are really quick. They're not the fastest team in the NHL, but they're definitely in the top half, I think. When you look at their players, just from a youth standpoint, there's just so much speed up and down that lineup now. Whether or not they turn into anything. Colorado's a team that a lot of fans mentioned.
I forgot about Colorado, and I was just thinking.
And they talked about how they could put McKinnon, Duchesne, and Barry on a 3-on-3, and somebody jokingly said whoever wins the faceoff will win the game.
That's good. That's really good.
Which I like.
That shows the fans are really astute, because McKinnon is just lightning fast.
No, he's crazy fast.
Yeah, it's just amazing.
And Duchesne and Barry, and none of them are defensive stalwarts, so it's definitely going to be, if you put them out there together, you're in trouble if you don't get the puck.
When you said that pretty much every team is mentioned, I kind of chuckled, because I think so often now you hear GMs and coaches talk about that all the time, that there's such an emphasis on speed now, is that there aren't any teams now that are, other than, there's probably a few, but for the most part, there aren't any slow teams. Everybody has got good quality skaters, and you're splitting hairs when you're talking about the difference between the top skating teams and the non. But you brought up an interesting point, and I'm glad you did, because I had a discussion about this morning with someone in the NHL about what's going to happen 3-on-3 in overtime, and his opinion is, and the more he thought about it, I'm buying this completely. He thinks that we're just expecting that it's going to work the way it does in the AHL, which is a series of 3-on-2 breaks. Mm-hmm. He thinks that that what's going to happen is we're going to gain the zone and set up like we're on a power play, because that'll prevent, you'll be in a defensive posture if the puck turns over.
Right.
Much do, and he thinks it's going to be a lot more calculated, and we're going to see more, kind of setting up as opposed to just a series of up and down action. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. If I had to guess, I'd say we're going to go up and down in the beginning. Then as the season wears on and the points become more important, then I think everyone will be a little careful.
Yeah, when I did a blog a little while ago about basically 5 things that I predicted would happen in 3-on-3 overtime, and the one was so my number 1 was I thought less than 60% of the games will be decided before the shootout. I don't think the number will nearly be what it is in the AHL. I don't think we're going to be at 75. I think it's less than 60.
Well, it could be more tactical, as Kevin was alluding, but the thing is, I think 3-on-3, you're going to have more situations where if one person is out of position by one stride, the game is over with. Because you're going to have a player completely wide open, and a goalie is not going to be able to cover the ground that he would have to. So I think it won't be as definitive in the NHL as compared to the AHL, because the talent is better. But I still think it's going to solve a lot more games than it would have 4-on-4.
And I think the first month, I agree with Kevin. I think the first month it's going to be like a shootout. It's just going to be up and down the ice, and then the coaches are going to be like, whoa, well, let's reel it in here, and then they'll start making adjustments.
It'll make them. There's too many defensive-minded coaches in the NHL that this will terrify them. Like Ken Hitchcock. I can't imagine Ken Hitchcock coaching a 3-on-3 overtime and not being just. And I think there's more or less, to me, I think you're going to see a surprising amount of teams go with 1 forward and 2 defensemen in this situation, just because. The big difference between the NHL and the AHL is the amount of puck handling defensemen in the NHL versus the AHL, where, if you're going to take a risk, think about it. If you're going to put out your two defensemen, aren't you happier or more secure that with the defenseman moving up in the play than you are with a forward moving back? Well, think about that. The defenseman moving up in the play is with these puck moving defensemen really is not that big of a deal. They can play forwards, they can go up in it, but a forward trying to come back is much bigger, is much scarier.
It's so like a Pietrangelo, Shattenkirk, Bacchus.
Yeah, like that kind of thing, because you have no problem with those defenders playing offense. Like those guys can easily come up there and make passes, right?
That's why teams like Ottawa, Montreal, and LA with Doughty, with Subban, and with Carlson, who jump into the rush regularly, will have an advantage.
I think Nick Leddy will help the Islanders 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Kevin, thoughts on the 2 defensemen? Do you think it's going to be 2 offensemen?
I think it depends on what the team's going to be, but I think we will see some 2 defensemen. A lot will depend also what you have up front and who the guys are. Like you're not going to worry about Jonathan Taves or Patrice Bergeron.
True.
Right.
So you're going to give those guys, if you've got 2 quality forwards, I think you're going to try to take advantage of that.
Yeah.
What team goes 3 forwards first?
Colorado, no questions asked. Patrick Roy will definitely go 3 forwards. There's no two ways about it. He will definitely be the one who goes out there with 3 forwards, and he kind of almost. Barry's got Barry, but after Barry, what defenseman on his team would you really want out there in a 3-on-3? I think that he's going to go.
Seth Jones. Oh wait, sorry.
I also don't know whether you're going to see a lot of teams like. I don't know if Rick Nash will see the ice on a 3-on-3 in overtime.
I think he will. I think Rick Nash is really good defensively.
Yeah.
Not a comment on his defensive abilities. A comment on his.
Nash is a plus skater.
I don't think he is anymore. I think he used to be, but I think he's starting to
reliability.
Right.
No, he's actually become better defensively. And I think over time.
I think Nash will be out there. I agree with Mike that he isn't the skater he once was. You think back to 2005 when he was the best player at the World Championships during the lost season, and I thought he was going to be the best player in the NHL the following season. It never happened, but he was such a powerful. He's not that anymore, but he still has great offensive instincts, and you got guys out there like that. So. It is going to be interesting because there will be guys like Darren Helm is not a great offensive player, but he's fast as all get out. So he's going to be out there. He's going to get a lot of time out there.
And the big thing to me is you play to win or play not to lose. That's what it's going to come down to. There's going to be teams that are going to be playing to win. There's going to be teams that are playing not to lose, and playing not to lose 3-on-3, I think, is a bad strategy.
It's far more dangerous 3-on-3 playing not to lose because one.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah, right. We saw that. We see that over time a lot. 4-on-4, where there would be teams that would play not to lose, and they would get to the shootout, and they would take over from there if they were a good shootout team. But this is going to be. It is going to be fun, and like I said before when we talked about 3-on-3, I wish the NHL would just say for the preseason, all third periods are 3-on-3, just to practice it. Why not? What's the point? Just to sort of figure it out.
Well, because I think it'll be more fun that they'll be figuring it out on the fly.
Oh yeah, no, it definitely will be more fun than it'll be figuring it out on the fly. But if I'm a coach, I would be pushing for more security. But it's gonna be awesome. Other teams, so the teams I went with the quickest thing before we get out of here is Minnesota and Winnipeg, and two teams that we haven't mentioned. Because I don't just see them as fast teams. I see them as, like you said, Kevin, like Chicago teams that play fast. The Jets and the Wild particularly have the ability at times to play incredibly quickly. They're not. The Wild aren't nearly as consistent at it. The Jets aren't nearly as consistent as the Wild are, and probably neither of them is as consistent as Chicago. But when the Wild is going full tilt, they're shockingly fast. And another team that doesn't get credit for this is the Montreal Canadiens. They're a quick team. They're a very fast team, and part of what the Canadiens have going for them, besides the goaltending, is their speed. Their speed does help them on many occasions. They have a lot of smaller, fast players who really do get the Canadiens a lot of breaks. The Canadiens, are. We can say every team's fast. You can say the Islanders fast. You can say, for sure. A lot of people were mad at us for not mentioning the Capitals as being one of the toughest teams in the NHL the other day. I think that's.
We actually did talk about them.
We did, but they're as tough as they used to be.
They thought that
because of all the players who've left. Yeah.
Maybe they're faster now. They're definitely a faster team.
Well, yeah.
They made some really good moves, and I started working on my previews too, and I don't know where I don't want Kevin to spoil his previews or anything like that, or where this team ended up, but the Capitals are they're a team that you have to consider.
I think that they are a better team, and I think they're going to. Let's put it this way: I think they're more likely to win the division now than they were, but I don't think they're built as well to go farther in the playoffs.
Right.
I don't know.
There's a transition going on there with the Fairs and the Wards and the Browers leaving and the young guys like Burakovsky and Kuznetsov coming to the forefront. I still think that Mike Green leaving, they still sort of have a hole on their bottom pairing, but I think that they're a very good offensive club, and if Backstrom comes back from this hip problem,
he might not be back for the top of the season now is the word, right? So,
but if he does, they're going to be in great shape.
Well, and here's the thing, right? They actually went out and got in Justin Williams, one of the best playoff players of the last 10 years, right? So that has to help their playoffs. And then they went out and T.J. Oshie, one of the worst playoff players. Like T.J. Oshie is completely his statistics versus the regular season. St. Louis Blues fans will flat out tell you the reason he got traded is because he doesn't score in the playoffs. And they went out and they got one of each. They got themselves a top guy in Justin Williams and a real disappointing guy in Oshie as far as playoffs go. But both of them, though, are the kind of players that Ovechkin has never had around them. around
Right.
him. Both these are two real old school hockey players to me. Like these are like two guys that just these are like the Bill Guerin type hockey players that you love to have on your team in Oshie and Williams, and both are going to go in there, and both aren't going to be in all of Alexander Ovechkin's. Like that doesn't mean anything to them. That they're both going to be like, these are farm bred Canadian and American hockey players. I think Oshie and Williams are going to really be the perfect. I mean, this is the one thing the Caps haven't had too much of. I mean, Joel Ward was that way, but and we forgot to mention when we talked about the Sharks because he's a good pickup for them too. They did pick up Joel Ward, correct? I haven't read about that. So we talked about the Sharks not doing much. That Joel Ward is another good playoff guy. But anyway, that's sort of my thought there. But the Caps are any hints, Kevin? Are you high on the Caps? Oh, we lost them. Anyway, I guess not.
Apparently not.
Yeah.
Apparently not.
No, I mean, I'm very high on the Caps, Zach. I think that, like I said, with the Kuznetsov started to show at the end of the season and in the playoffs the game-breaking talent that he has. What they were waiting for a couple or 3 years to get from the KHL. He started.
He's another one. I mean, he's another depth thing. I mean, this team. If there was a sister team to the Capitals in the West, like we talked about sister teams before, where I said that Flyers and the Stars were kind of similar to me.
Right.
The Capitals are the Blues to a degree. Now the Blues have better defense, but there's something about them, and Kuznetsov is Tarasenko, to me. Like that's that, up and coming Russian superstar that could change everything, and yet, the Blues have better defense, the Caps have better goaltending.
Yeah.
But they both are expected to do good things. They both could be contenders. They both have a chance to actually do something. The people forget the Caps were one game away, from going to the, they were right there with the Rangers. They really battled the Rangers through 7 games.
And strangely enough, I think the trade that the two teams made is going to help both of them. I think
I do too.
Oshie is probably going to play on that top line with Backstrom and with Ovechkin.
And that's going to be really fun to watch.
Yeah, and if he does, I think he's probably going to score 30 goals.
He's like a hockey pool guy, definitely.
Yeah, he can't score 30 goals in that top line.
Yeah, and St. Louis.
I mean, seriously.
Bro, yeah, exactly. And St. Louis has enough goal scoring with Backes, with Tarasenko and Laterra and all the forwards that they have that they really they really needed Jaden Schwartz, that they needed a heart and soul guy like Brouwer who can score goals too, and he can be a second or third line guy and really help them out. So I think it was a good deal for both teams.
Yep. Yeah, I agree with that. And the last thing I want to talk about today is something that one of Kevin's opinion on, but obviously Kevin has just decided to say to hell with the show and left us. No, Kevin got called away, as happens to all of us. We have now been told essentially that Sidney Crosby is going to be playing with Phil Kessel. Okay, that this has come out now, that this is the new thing, that it's going to. It was always assumed that was pretty much going to happen, right? But now we know for a fact that Kessel and Crosby are going to at least start the season together.
Right.
Is there enough puck for Crosby and Kessel to start the season together? That's my question. Because both of these guys thrive on carrying the puck up the ice. Both of these guys are all about bringing the puck up the ice. Do they work? I think they obviously will work together well. They're obviously both skilled players, but it's not a given because the way they play is so similar. They both dig in the corners really well, which is true, which is good. They both, they're both cycling players to a degree. I mean, Kessel not as much as Crosby, but
not as much.
But the weird thing about Kessel is he has been on Team USA. He wasn't on the Leafs, but when you watch Kessel play for Team USA, when he plays with other highly skilled cycling players, he's very good at the forecheck. He's not a forecheck. He never forechecked on the Leafs at all. So it's impossible. So I don't know which Kessel we're going to get.
Well, I mean, one of the things after watching Kessel for, I think it was 6 seasons in Toronto, he was the focal point of the offense, and he had to be because he was the best player. But for most of his career, I mean, once he got out of Boston, once he got to Toronto, the puck, if it was going to go into the zone, it was going to be on his stick. Now, we know that Malkin loves to control the puck. on the second line. We know that Crosby is going to dish the puck on the first line. It's going to take a little getting used to from Kessel, but I think the possibility of him being able to score 40 to 45 goals playing on the right wing of Sidney Crosby will break him of the habit, and I think he wants to make things work in Pittsburgh, so I don't think it'll be that tough of a transition for him.
Well, I keep going back. Go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
The bigger question is, obviously, you have this fancy new toy. You're gonna put the two together and see how it goes. But who's gonna be playing with them?
Probably Kunitz.
Who?
I think it's going to be David Perron. I'm talking to people. I think it's going to be.
They need some size to play with those two.
I know. I think it's going to be David Perron. I keep hearing that Kunitz, Dupuis, and another player I can't think of right now.
We mentioned the player over 6'1".
Oh, I know, but the third line is going to be highly paid. The Penguins' third line is going to be a highly paid third line. I mean, it's going to be, Dupuis makes money, Kunitz makes money, and the other guy makes money too, and I can't think of who it is right now.
Hornquist is there too.
Now Hornquist will be with Malkin,
Yep.
Yes.
and in all likelihood, the new Russian kid they got, I was told, like
Right.
who Malkin has been mentoring all summer. Took him to the Steelers game the other day. So the Malkin's going to be with that Russian kid and Hornquist. That's going to be a European line.
Oh, Plotnikov.
Yeah, Plotnikov, right. Yeah. But Kunitz is probably not. They're going to probably put David Perron with at least to start with Crosby and Kessel.
Well, the only motivation there that may be right is the fact that Perron is an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and if they can inflate his offensive totals playing with Crosby and Kessel, then they could get something pretty good for him at the deadline. And I'm not talking about just dumping him for a draft pick. I'm talking about maybe they can trade him for assets that they can have for a couple years. So that might be. But at the end of the season, I still believe that Kunitz will be with Crosby and Kessel. But the thing is, if it doesn't work out, then you're probably going to see Hornquist and Kessel switch places with Malkin and Crosby.
The third line though, would that be? So that would be Dupuis, Bonino, and.
Well, it could be Matt Cullen. I mean, he's a veteran player.
I gotta remember who it was. I'll look
at it.
It's
a highly skilled team, but that's a small team.
I talked to somebody about this.
Eric Fair, who they signed from the Capitals, but
Eric Fair. That's who I had.
And maybe Bo Bennett can finally stay healthy.
Fair's your third line guy, right? He's not ready yet, but.
And Fair's going to be out, I think, the first month of the season. He's injured.
Right.
He had shoulder surgery, I believe it was.
Right. Correct. So yeah, the question on the power play too. We know that Kessel likes to hang along the boards on the left-hand side, if I remember right.
Yeah.
And Crosby likes to hang along the boards on the right-hand side.
Right. Yeah.
Kessel's all about that one-timer that come across, right? That from the right to left. I mean, if you got Crosby and Kessel on both boards, that's not gonna, that power play will make sense. That'll work.
And Malkin in front of the net.
Yeah. Can you imagine? I mean, you got to spread. Your defense has to spread wide to keep an eye on those two players on the outside, and Malkin's going to have all the room in the world in the middle of the ice, and you can't leave Malkin alone. So that power play is going to be crazy.
I just don't know how to read this team. I think they can either win the division, or this could go horribly wrong. I don't think there's much in between.
Yeah, I think it's gonna go okay for them. I just have a feeling it's going to be because there's going to be such an influx of energy in the beginning of the year because Crosby's never had anybody like Kessel to play with. He's never had that. I mean, Hossa was the closest thing he had, right? So Hossa but he was only there for a very short period of time, and even he was not, the speed of Kessel. So it's like this having, somebody to play with like Kessel it's going to bring a lot of energy to the team right away.
Yeah, and I think there's something to be said for Kessel having something to prove this year.
Oh, absolutely.
I agree.
No, there's no question about that. And also just the relief of Kessel off of his shoulders of not being in the Toronto limelight is going to be enormous. I mean, the fact he's going to be able to go out and play without having to think about that.
Yeah, one of the days that I put a little star next to is Halloween night, and how appropriate, when Pittsburgh visits Toronto.
Oh boy.
That will be probably the highlight of the season because not a lot is expected of Toronto this year. But Kessel coming back with all those with Crosby and Malkin and seeing what he tries to do against this former team will be very enlightening.
Yes, it will.
Plenty of security for that night, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Well, that's about it for today, guys. Great show as always. Thank you, Dan, for all your help this week. We appreciate it so much. And we might have you. We might still be coming in, right? You're still coming back.
No, I will not be.
You're not back for the rest of the week. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I'm off to Philadelphia for one of my best friends, Florida Panther producer Chris Cajaro, getting married on Saturday. So.
Oh, you're coming to Philly? Wow.
I'll be outside of Philly. Yep.
I would love to visit with you. I will be at the shore this weekend though. So
Nice.
Yes, I'll be down in Margate. Guys, remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you soon.